All right, folks, so let's talk about finishing this thing up. So in wiring one, in the wiring one video, we talked about how to do basic wiring, how to make these little hooks, okay, how to use your wire cutters, how to strip the sheathing off of the Romex or this cable. Okay. And then we set this box up. Now, I've already done some work on it. We did this in class, but just in case you're a little bit behind, one of the things we got to do first is we got to make sure that you got 6 inches of wire sticking out of the box. So you need to have enough wire to work with. If you're trying to work with wire this long, you're fighting it the whole time. Okay. So I've already done a lot of this, but I'll show you how to deal with it. So if you've got one of those metal strippers, that's the bent over piece of metal, you learned how to use that already. And the only difference now is that you're going to have to put that down kind of inside the box where you clamp against it with your fingers down here and then pull upward to get that sheathing off. Now, I don't have that type. I have this type here. Which if you'll remember has that little doohickey in there that's going to stick into the side of the sheathing. It's going to and then slice it. So it gets a little tricky when it's in a box. So I'm going to make sure I got, again, about using my hand as a gauge. I've got about 6 inches sticking up out of there. And now we're going to put this guy on there and make sure that that little notch guy goes into the sheathing and push on it. You should feel it starting to cut the sheathing, okay? Because I can feel that in there. And then once it pokes through, be careful. You kind of keep pressure on it so it doesn't fall off again. And now I'm going to grab this end and push it kind of down into the box. Okay, so I've got it pushed down inside of there so that when I remove this, pull it off, I've cut down into I've cut the sheathing all the way down into inside of the box. Okay, we can also remove the paper from the ground wire. And then here you can actually just grab it and pull it to break that off, or you can take your wire cutters, being careful not to cut the wire or other wires, and just go to the side of the wires you just stripped the sheathing off of and just cut that stuff off. Okay, so that you got about 6 inches of wire sticking off. Now, for all of these wires, remember the rule of literal thumb. Right, we're going to cut about a thumbnail wide if you got fat fingers like mine of insulation off, or if you've got fairly narrow fingers, you're going to do your width of your thumb, and we're going to strip all of those off. And for most of them, you're going to make hooks, with the exception of the light switch. Now, some of you already did this in a different class, but remember that we're going to, in the light switch box, we hook together the neutral wires because the neutral wires don't do anything for the switch. The switch is whether or not hot is connected or not connected. So that one doesn't get hooks on them because those two get the wire nut. Now, when you put wire nuts on, don't forget that you're going to make sure that the ends of the wire are flush, and then twist that guy on there. Okay. Now, while we're talking about the light, the light switch, in case you weren't keeping up in class, I'll talk about how we dealt with this with the ground wire in a moment, because we hooked it up. Only one wire gets to hook onto one screw. Okay, you don't get to put 2 of them on there. So I'll show you how we did this, because it's the same process that we'll do in this box. Now, on the other side, here's how I know that a student wasn't paying attention in the last video or in class or to this video. They'll hook a neutral to one side and a hot to the other. And if you do that, what you're doing when you turn on the switch and it connects those together is you've created a short circuit, because you've created a path for the electrons to flow through there back to ground or back to the neutral, back to the panel, with nothing in between, no kind of resistance or load. And that, remember, that's a short circuit. So what we've done over here is we've hooked up our, and you already learned how to hook the wires up and how to make your wire ends and everything. And it doesn't matter which is which. We hooked one wire up to one side and one wire up to the other side of the switch. It is the regular switch, not those big fat switches that have another screw over on this side. Now, it is important that it goes in this direction, right? Because there is a top and bottom to a regular switch. It says off, little words right there. And then when you flip it up, it's on, okay? Three ways are different. Those can get moved around. So wire that guy up. Now, we're going to leave things sticking out of the box until the last thing. Okay, we're even going to light it up first, and then we'll make it all pretty and put the covers on and all that. So I'm going to tuck this neutral wire down kind of inside the box. Leave it sticking up just a little bit. Those screws that are sticking out are what go into these little holes here, but we're not going to do that quite yet. All right, so we've got our switch hooked up. Now, let's talk about what we're going to do over in this box next. So I've stripped the insulation and made my hooks on there. Now, in this box, we're going to take this ground wire. We've got nothing to hook it to because our light receptacle has just these. There's a neutral and there's a hot on the back of it. That's it. There's no place to put the ground. So honestly, I don't know if this is legal per code or not, but we're going to take that ground wire and we're just going to push it down inside of the box, because what's going to be important here is that when I put this onto the box, that these screws don't hit that ground wire. If this hot plate with the screws on it hits that ground wire or hits the neutral end, then it creates a short circuit, and that is not good. So we're going to get that way down in there, okay? And then we're going to hook these guys up to the hot wire. Is going to go on the neutral. Now you'll notice there's these little nubs on here, right? Right there. That helps keep that wire from moving around. So if we take our wire and hook it on there, kind of have to twist it a little bit, okay, and stick it out that way, that little nub helps kind of hold it in place. Now, just like with your receptacles, I'm kind of pulling this way on that wire and holding it taut while I screw that screw down. The neutral wire is going to come from the other side like that. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing while I'm pulling on that. I'm going to tighten that guy down, and then we're going to kind of move it around, bend the wires with my fingers, so that it's, again, sitting right up above the thing. Now, there's going to be screws that go through that into here, but that's not going to happen again until the last step. So it's okay that things are sort of floating around above the boxes like this. That's just fine. Now, before we move on, in a little plastic bag in your kit is one of these dudes that we're going to use to put the LED into, and that's what we'll mimic a light bulb with. So that guy's going to screw down into where normally a light bulb would go, and screw that all the way down until it's fairly snug. Okay, and now we're ready for that part. All right, final part is, and I'm purposely not going to show every single step with this, because I want you to be able to figure out things on your own. We've got neutral coming in. Okay, we've got neutral going out, hot coming in, hot going out, right? So your receptacle has a neutral side with two screws. You have two neutral wires. You have a brass or hot side with 2 screws. You have 2 black wires, and you have the ground. Now this is going to be where I get to talking about the same thing that we did with the light switch over here. So here we go with that. Here's how to make that happen. We're going to get our wires kind of stretched out so that they're both approximately sticking out the same amount, so that they're not one like a lot longer than the other. Now, one of these green wires is going to get cut much shorter than the other. So we're going to cut it about 2.5 to 3 inches shorter than the other one. Be careful you're not cutting anything else. And we will discard the little piece that gets that got cut off. Okay. Now, the way that those little green wire nuts work is that there is a hole on the end for one of these wires to go through. Let's see if I can tilt this up, show this off a little bit better. Move some of these out of the way. All right, so this guy goes on, and you poke the one wire through. Then you hold these guys together so that it continues over the top of. So now we're wire nutting. We're screwing these 2 wires together so they make contact, but only one wire is sticking out. Okay, so we're going to kind of push, and you'll feel them twisting together, and you'll feel it starting to get harder to turn. And once it's pretty hard to turn, then you know you've got, and you can't help but twist the 2 wires. You know you make good contact. It takes a little longer than you might think, so it'll take several turns more once it makes contact. And now we're going to put a hook onto this end. We're going to strip the insulation off of these wires, put the hooks on the ends, and we're going to put in our receptacle. Honestly, it doesn't matter which direction you put it. If you go back east, there's a lot of receptacles are put this way. And here, for whatever reason, the receptacles are usually this way. So I don't know. It seems to me like this is, even the text is written this way. So it seems like this is a little bit more standard. All right. So you're going to hook that up, and next we will talk about how to hook up your power source to this remaining end and light things up. So cool. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.